German Shepherd finds park ranger chained to tree. What happened next? The wind tore through the trees like a scream. Snowflakes spun violently in the air, burying the trail in white. No one in their right mind would be out here. But the K-9 training unit didn't cancel drills for weather, especially not Sergeant Rachel Monroe. "Keep formation," Rachel called out, squinting through her goggles. 5 German shepherds moved ahead of her in perfect sync, their sleek bodies low, noses working the air. She checked their GPS tags on her wrist tracker. All green, all accounted for. Except one. She blinked. Rex's signal had vanished. "Rex, come in," she said into her mic. Nothing. She stopped in her tracks. The others slowed too, sensing her tension. "Where the hell did you go?" The snow swallowed sound, but in the distance, faint and sharp, a single bark cut through. Not random, not lost. Rachel's heart dropped. Rex had a bark for emergencies. He only used it when something was wrong. She unhooked her sled and grabbed her rifle. "Echo team, regroup at marker 7. I'm going after Rex." She radioed. No time to explain. She plunged into the trees, boots crunching in fresh snow, rifle slung across her chest. Her breath came out in clouds. Every second felt heavier than the last. Then she heard it again. Bark. Pause. Bark. Urgent. Measured. She pushed deeper, ducking under frozen branches until she broke through a thicket and nearly stumbled into a clearing. And there, her breath caught. A man. Chained to a tree. Blood stained the snow beneath him. His park ranger uniform was shredded, his lips blue, eyes half-lidded. "Jesus Christ," she whispered. Rex stood in front of him, completely still. His ears pointed, his stance protective. He didn't move until Rachel approached. Then he turned his head and looked at her, eyes sharp as if to say, "Hurry!" She rushed forward, dropping to the man's side. Hey, can you hear me?" she said, checking his pulse. Weak. But there. The chain wrapped tight around his torso and shoulders, biting into his skin. His name tag was torn, but she could make out the letters. E. Cole. Rachel grabbed her radio. "Dispatch, this is Sergeant Monroe. I've got a live body. Park ranger, male, late 30s. Chained. Bleeding. Hypothermic, I need medevac now. Coordinates following." A voice interrupted. Weak. Barely audible. "Don't. Let them. No, I'm alive." She turned back to the ranger. His eyes were open now, and afraid. "Who?" she asked. He coughed, a wet rattle. "They think I'm dead," Rex growled suddenly, spinning toward the woods. His stance shifted. Defensive. Rachel raised her rifle. Crunch. A footstep. Then silence. "Someone's out there," she muttered, moving to stand in front of the ranger. She scanned the tree line. Empty. Rex took off like a bullet, vanishing into the white. "Rex! Wait!" Too late. She turned back to the ranger, heart racing. "We have to get you out of here," she said. "Now!" He shook his head, blood dripping from his nose. "They'll come back." She didn't answer, just pulled bolt cutters from her gear. The chain snapped on the third squeeze. She eased him down into the snow. A thud behind her made her spin. A man in camo stepped out from the trees, masked, holding a rifle. Rachel dropped to a crouch. The man spoke. "You should have left him." "Put it down," Rachel said, steady. "We have backup coming." "No, you don't." He raised the rifle. Rex exploded from the side, tackling him mid-sentence. The rifle flew from his hands. They hit the ground hard, snow spraying everywhere. Rachel didn't hesitate. She rushed forward, kicked the weapon aside, and pulled her sidearm. "Rex, off!" Rex growled but obeyed, backing away, his jaws bloodied. The man moaned beneath him, arm bent at an unnatural angle. Rachel cuffed him with shaking hands. "What the hell is going on out here?" she whispered. She turned back to the ranger. He was unconscious again. The clearing fell silent. Just the wind, and Rex, standing over the man like a guardian carved in stone. Rachel stared at him. "You're not just a dog," she whispered. You knew. Rex looked at her, chest heaving, ears twitching toward the trees again. And in that instant, Rachel felt it too. This wasn't random. This was just the beginning. 2 days later, the ranger station buzzed with quiet urgency. A low hum of voices filled the hallways. Phones rang, radios crackled, and in the middle of it all, Ethan Cole sat upright in a hospital cot, wrapped in bandages, jaw bruised, eyes sunken but sharp. The snow outside never stopped. Montana winters didn't care about trauma. Sheriff Dean Walker stepped inside, heavy boots echoing off the tile. A man in his late 50s, square jaw, weathered face. No bullshit. He shut the door behind him. "You're lucky to be alive," he said. Ethan didn't answer. Dean sighed. "We got one of them. The guy Rex took down. Still won't say a word." Ethan's voice came out hoarse. "There were more. We know, but he won't talk." Ethan looked out the window. "They left me to die. Out there. Like I was nothing." Dean shifted uncomfortably. "I know. Rachel filled us in. Hell of a rescue." Ethan's eyes moved. "Where is she?" "Outside. With Rex." That name brought something back to Ethan's face. Not a smile. Something quieter. Something deep. "He never left me," Ethan murmured. "Even after I passed out." Dean nodded. "Rachel said he laid on you like a damn heating pad. Growled at anyone who came too close. EMTs had to wait for her command before touching you." Ethan looked down. "That dog saved my life." A knock on the door. Rachel stepped in with a gentle nod. Her braid was loose, snow still melting from her coat. "You look better vertical," she said. Ethan tried to smirk. Failed. "Not dead?" "So yeah, upgrade." She crossed the room and sat. "Do you remember what happened?" "Most of it." "You said they thought you were dead." "They dragged me from my truck. No plate numbers, no IDs. Said I asked too many questions." Rachel leaned forward. "Questions about what?" "Land permits. I flagged a few last month. Weird signatures. GPS logs didn't match reported work." Dean frowned. "That's not public info. I'm a ranger. I see who moves where." Rachel exchanged a look with the sheriff. Ethan continued. "There was one contractor, Jack Milner, supposed to be servicing wildlife cams, but I never signed off." Dean pulled out his phone. Tapped. Then froze. "We've got a Jack Milner on file. Cleared last month. Your name's on the approval." "I didn't sign it," Ethan snapped. "Somebody forged it." Rachel's voice was steady. "So someone from inside?" "Has to be. They knew where to leave me so no one would find the body." A silence dropped like a stone. Dean rubbed his temple. "Hell." Rachel stood. "We'll run the file. I want to look at the GPS logs too." Ethan leaned back, exhaling slowly. "And Rex?" Rachel smiled slightly. "In the hallway. Refuses to leave the door." Dean raised a brow. "That dog's a damn legend." "He's not just a dog," Ethan said softly. Rachel paused. "You know, he's had trouble with handlers. Since his partner died overseas. Never bonded again. Till you." "I didn't do anything." "You didn't have to." They fell silent. Suddenly a deputy burst in, breathless. "Sheriff, we've got something." Dean stood instantly. "Talk." The deputy gulped. Fresh tire tracks. Near Sector 9. Snow's been falling steady. Tracks are recent. Chains, too. Cut ones. Just like the ones Cole was tied with. Rachel's eyes snapped to Ethan. They came back. Dean grabbed his coat. Get me visuals, and full team out there. Now! The deputy ran off. Rachel turned to Ethan. You can't stay here. I'm not hiding. You're still recovering. I'm not hiding. Rachel's voice dropped. They think you're dead. That's our only advantage. Rex barked once, loud and sharp, from the hallway. Not random. Rachel moved to the door and opened it. Rex stood tall, tail stiff, ears up. What is it, boy? He turned and trotted toward the exit. Rachel looked back. He wants us to follow. Dean pulled his sidearm. Then we follow. Outside, the wind picked up. Flakes flew sideways. Visibility was dropping. But Rex didn't hesitate. He led them across the lot, past the old garages, to the edge of the tree line. He stopped. A shape stood there. A man. Just watching. Ethan froze. Rachel raised her weapon. Hands up! The figure turned and bolted into the woods. Go! Dean shouted. Rex lunged forward. Rachel and Dean followed, Ethan a step behind despite the pain. Snow flew in every direction. Branches slapped their faces. The figure weaved through trees with practiced precision. Then he vanished. Gone. As if he'd melted into the forest. Dean cursed. You see his face? Rachel shook her head. Too fast. But he knew this place. Rex sniffed frantically, pacing in circles. Then stopped. Barked once. Short. Frustrated. Ethan stepped closer, hands on his knees, breathing hard. He was watching, checking if I was still dead. Rachel nodded. And now he knows you're not. The snow began to fall harder. The forest fell silent again. But something had shifted. They weren't chasing shadows anymore. Now, the shadows were chasing back. The ranger station didn't sleep. Since the man in the woods vanished, the place had been on lockdown. Deputies rotated shifts in pairs. Rifles stayed loaded. No one walked alone. Inside, Ethan sat by the front window, wrapped in a wool blanket. His ribs still ached, but his thoughts were sharper now. Every creak in the floor, every gust of wind outside, set his pulse racing. His gut told him this wasn't over. Not even close. Rex sat at his feet, alert. Not resting. Watching. Rachel walked in holding 2 steaming cups. She handed one to Ethan. No painkillers again? He shook his head. They mess with my head. She smirked. You were almost frozen stiff. I think you're allowed a foggy brain. I need it clear. Rachel sipped her coffee. You always this stubborn? I didn't used to be. Rex shifted, standing. His ears pricked forward. A low rumble vibrated in his throat. Rachel froze. What's he got? Ethan leaned forward. He hears something. They listened. Nothing. Then softly metal on metal. Faint. From the back lot. That was the chain link gate, Rachel said, standing. Ethan rose too fast, winced, grabbed the table for balance. Rachel went for her radio. Dispatch, we need eyes on the south fence. The power cut. Total black. The room sank into silence, broken only by the humming of emergency lights blinking on. Rex moved toward the door, his steps slow, deliberate. Rachel pulled a flashlight, swept the beam across the room. Ethan grabbed a fire axe from the wall. Garage door might have been tripped, she said. Don't go alone, Ethan replied. Rex barked once. Sharp, like an order. They moved fast, clearing hallways, checking corners. Every door creaked like it was protesting their presence. Then, from the far side of the building, glass shattered. Rachel raised her gun. North Hall, she said into the radio. Confirm breach. Copy, came the response, staticky. We're on it. Ethan tightened his grip on the axe. They moved toward the sound. In the generator room, the door was open. Rachel flashed her light inside. Empty. But something glinted under the backup console. A piece of wire. Cut clean. Fresh. Ethan crouched beside it. They're trying to disable everything. Rachel spoke low. Why not just torch the place? To make it look like equipment failure, Ethan said. An accident. Suddenly, Rex lunged to the doorframe, barking. 3 times. Fast. Someone was outside. They rushed into the hallway and saw it, just for a second. A figure ducking behind the wreck cabin. Masked. Moving like he belonged here. Rachel didn't hesitate. She ran. Ethan and Rex followed, snow crunching beneath their boots and paws. They rounded the corner. Gone. No tracks. Just snow swirling in the wind. Rachel cursed. He knew where the cameras are. Cut the feed, Ethan added. Moved before we could get a visual. Rex started pacing, sniffing hard. Then he stopped. Tail stiff. What is it, buddy? Rachel asked. Rex turned his head and walked, not fast, not slow, like he was tracing a path. Ethan followed him toward the perimeter fence. That's when they saw it. A trail. Subtle. Not footprints, drag marks. Something had been hauled through the snow. Rachel's flashlight caught a glint near a tree trunk, a bolt cutter, with initials carved into the handle. Those are ranger issue, Ethan said, picking it up. She took a closer look. Stolen? No, Ethan said. Voice hollow. Signed out last month. By me. Rachel frowned. But you didn't. Someone used my name. Again. Rex whined, staring into the woods. Not barking, not moving, just staring. I think he knows where they went, Ethan said. Rachel hesitated. We can't track them in the dark. We have to try. No backup, no air support, no thermal. I have him. Rex didn't wait for confirmation. He moved forward, nose to the ground, body tight with focus. Rachel and Ethan followed close behind. After 15 minutes of trekking, they reached a rocky outcrop. Rex stopped, barked twice. They looked down. A makeshift camp, hidden under camo netting, almost invisible from above. Inside maps, radios, a box of wildlife camera chips. Rachel stepped forward slowly. These aren't just poachers. Ethan opened one of the maps. It was a grid, colored markings over land parcels, most of them inside federal land. Land deals, he muttered. They're selling pieces of the forest. Rachel shook her head. No way this was done without help. They forged my name. Twice. Rex suddenly growled deep in his chest. Rachel turned. A shadow moved through the trees. Gunshots cracked. They hit the dirt. Ethan crawled toward Rex, shielding him instinctively. Rachel fired back, controlled bursts into the dark. Silence. Then footsteps retreating fast. They waited. Nothing. Rachel stood. They weren't trying to kill us. Just scare us off, Ethan added. Rex remained alert, but didn't pursue. He didn't have to. They'd found the camp. And now they had proof. Rachel looked at Ethan. This is bigger than just one bad permit. Ethan nodded. Someone's buying the forest, and using the rangers to do it. She looked down at Rex. He looked back, calm, ready. Rachel whispered, He's not tracking a scent. He's following the truth. The fire alarm didn't just ring. It screamed. Ethan bolted upright in the dark, the high-pitched blare slicing through his skull. The emergency lights kicked on half a second later, bathing the ranger station in pulsing red. He grabbed his boots, not bothering with socks, and was already halfway out of the room when Rex shot past him like a bullet, a low growl rumbling from deep in his chest. "Rex, with me!" Ethan barked. No hesitation. The dog slowed only enough to match his stride. In the hallway, deputies scrambled in partial gear, weapons drawn. Rachel appeared at the far end, hair tied back, sidearm gripped tight, eyes already scanning the ceiling. "What the hell is it?" Ethan asked, heart thudding. "Motion sensor, garage entrance," she said, jogging toward him. "Door was forced. No camera feed. Someone cut it again." Ethan's blood ran cold. "They're inside," Rachel nodded. "Or someone let them in." That hung in the air for a beat too long. Then a crash exploded through the vents overhead. Heavy, metallic, deliberate. Everyone froze. Rex turned instantly, hackles rising. He stared at the ceiling like it had just spoken his name. Rachel didn't wait. "Roof access," she said, already sprinting for the stairs. Ethan followed, boots slamming against metal. Rex charged ahead, every inch of him wired with intent. Upstairs, the hatch to the roof was open. Wind screamed through it. Snow whipped in, swirling like smoke. Rachel pushed up and through. Ethan clambered out behind her, chest burning from the climb. The roof was a frozen sheet of white. A figure ran along the far side, rifle slung across his chest, backpack strapped tight. "There!" Rachel shouted. Rex didn't wait for permission. He launched forward. The man turned, spotted him, raised his weapon. "Rex, down!" Ethan shouted. Too late. A single gunshot cracked through the night. Rex twisted in midair. The bullet clipped his hind leg. He landed hard, but didn't stop. He scrambled forward and slammed into the man's chest, sending both of them sliding across the roof in a tangle of limbs and gear. Ethan's heart stopped. Rachel sprinted over and kicked the rifle away before the man could reach it. She slammed him onto his stomach and cuffed his hands behind his back. Ethan dropped to his knees beside Rex, hands trembling. The dog whimpered once. Blood trickled down his leg. "You're okay," Ethan said, voice hoarse. "You're okay, buddy. Stay with me." Rex lifted his head, ears twitching. Rachel ripped the mask off the attacker. Ethan recoiled. It was Chris Harlan, a deputy, one of theirs. "Son of a—" Ethan started. Rachel looked stunned. "He was with surveillance last year, and signed off on multiple backwoods patrol routes." Ethan added, "Routes near where I was taken." Harlan glared up at them. "You people don't get it. You're standing in the way of real money." Rachel grabbed him by the collar. "You shot a federal officer, and a K-9. "I shot a problem." Harlan spat. "But you're all too late. This thing's bigger than any of you." He smiled. It wasn't guilt. It was pride. They dragged him down, cuffed and silent. Locked him in a holding cell while paramedics patched up Rex in the mess hall. The bullet had only grazed muscle. No bones hit. But Ethan stayed by his side anyway, pressing his hand against the dog's thick neck. "You took that shot like it was nothing," he whispered. "You never hesitated." Rex licked his wrist. Tail thumped once. That was enough. Later that morning, Rachel stormed into the communications room, face pale. "You need to see this," she told Ethan, holding a flash drive between her fingers. He plugged it into the nearest terminal. One video file, grainy, time-stamped 2 weeks before the attack. The feed came from a remote wildlife camera. It showed Ethan standing outside his parked truck, clipboard in hand, arguing with 2 men in heavy coats. No visible insignias, no badges. "You're not authorized," Ethan's voice said in the clip. "Turn around." One man stepped closer, voice muffled. "You should stop asking questions, Ranger. before someone makes you stop." The clip ended. Ethan stared at the screen. That was the last day I saw that truck. It was torched the next night. Rachel folded her arms. Harlan deleted all his footage, but he forgot this one. Ethan looked at her. They knew what I was digging into. The permits. The boundaries. They'd tried to silence me. Rachel's voice dropped. "You think Chief Stanton's involved?" Ethan didn't blink. He signed off on the cabin we found, the one listed as condemned. Rachel handed him a new file. "That's not all. This came through last night. A satellite image. It showed a new clearing. Remote. Deep forest. Hidden from the road. A new camp. No permits. No name," she said. "But look." She pointed to a rectangle drawn on the image. That wasn't a building. It was a landing strip. Ethan stepped back. "They're moving shipments," he said. "In and out, undetected." Rachel nodded. "We think it's fentanyl. And timber. But it's more than that. They're selling access. Clean-cut land, disguised as wildlife damage. The paperwork backs it all up." Ethan's stomach turned. "And I was the only one flagging inconsistencies." "You were the only one asking questions," she said. "And now they're cleaning house." A deputy knocked on the door. "Sergeant Monroe, we got a problem." She stood. "What now?" "Generators out. Again, wires look cut." Rachel and Ethan locked eyes. "Backup battery?" "Already draining. Communications will go dark in 30 minutes. Ethan grabbed his coat. "We're being isolated," he said. "They're getting ready for something." He looked at Rex, still resting, but awake now, watching them. He didn't look tired. He looked ready. Ethan knelt beside him. "We're going back out tonight," he said. "Think you're up for it?" Rex licked his hand again. His tail twitched. Just once. That was the answer. They were done playing defense. Tonight they were going to find whoever was pulling the strings, and they were going to end it. The sky over Deadwood Forest was black as pitch. No stars, no moon, just wind and the crunch of boots on frozen soil. Ethan moved fast, rifle strapped tight, coat zipped to his neck. Rex padded beside him, fully alert, every step deliberate. Rachel trailed just behind, checking her compass, headlamp flickering in the cold. They'd left the ranger station an hour ago, cutting through the trees toward the signal ping from the illegal airstrip. Satellite scans had shown movement trucks, crates, makeshift shelters, and a power signature, likely a generator. This wasn't just timber theft anymore. It was organized crime. With backing. "Keep low," Rachel said, pointing to a drop ahead. "We go quiet from here." They crouched and slid down a narrow slope, then moved into the shadow of a dense pine cluster. In the distance, faint yellow lights flickered through the trees. The camp. Rex stopped, stiffened. His nose twitched. Ethan went still. "What is it, boy?" Rex took 3 steps forward, ears pinned back. Then he froze. A wire. Stretched between 2 trees, knee-high. Booby trap. Ethan exhaled. They rigged the trail. Rachel followed the wire with her eyes. Trip line, probably tied to a noise alarm. Smart dog. Rex looked over his shoulder, expression locked in. Not just smart, unshakable. They cut the wire and kept moving. Closer now. The camp sat in a shallow clearing, half hidden under camo netting. A massive generator hummed from the far end. 3 trucks were parked beside a stack of crates. 2 men stood on guard with rifles. One smoked. The other checked a tablet. "Thermal," Ethan whispered. Rachel scanned. 4 inside the tent, 2 by the crates, 1 on the ridge. Ethan adjusted his grip. "That's 7. Maybe more underground." Rachel said. Portable tunnels are common now. Ethan nodded. We need evidence. GPS tags, camera shots, anything to prove this isn't just logging. Rex suddenly stiffened again. Not alert. Warning. He turned, looked behind them, then vanished into the brush. Rex, Ethan hissed. Where are you going? Rachel grabbed his arm. Wait. A second later, muffled footsteps. Right behind them. Then a voice calm. Too calm. You should have stayed buried, Ranger. They turned. Chief Stanton stepped into the moonlight, dressed in tactical black, holding a suppressed pistol. Ethan didn't move. You. Rachel raised her rifle. Put it down, Stanton. He chuckled. Now why would I do that? You found our little airstrip. That complicates things. You left me chained to a tree, Ethan said. I didn't pull the trigger. Stanton replied. Just gave the order. You're a threat, Cole. You always were. Ethan clenched his jaw. You were supposed to protect this forest. I did, Stanton said. From idiots like you who don't understand the real economy. Behind him, the trees shifted. Rex moved through the dark like a ghost, circling. Rachel kept Stanton talking. Who else is in on this? State agents? Locals? Stanton grinned. You'll never know, because none of you are getting out of this forest. Rex lunged. No bark, no sound, just teeth. He hit Stanton's gun arm before the man could react, jaws locking onto his wrist. The pistol dropped with a thud. Ethan charged. He tackled Stanton into the snow. The chief fought back hard, but Ethan landed a clean punch across his jaw, then yanked his arms behind him. Rachel cuffed him, breath fogging in the air. You're done. Stanton spit blood. Sneering. They'll come for me. You think I'm the top? I'm just the floor. Ethan looked down at him. Good. We'll burn the whole house. They gagged him and hauled him to a tree. Rex stood guard, chest rising, tail still. He's hurt, Rachel said, looking at Rex's paw. Nothing stops him, Ethan replied. They moved back toward the camp, keeping to the shadows. Two of the guards were talking by the generator. Move in quiet, Ethan whispered. We take them. Fast. But before they could, gunfire erupted behind them. 3 short bursts, back at Stanton's tree. Move! Rachel shouted. They bolted through the woods. Rex ahead, Ethan and Rachel right behind. The tree was empty. The gag and cuffs were on the ground. Blood smeared across the bark. Stanton was gone. Someone was watching us, Ethan said, scanning the trees. Rex sniffed the ground, took off into the brush again. They followed him, weaving through branches and roots. Then, up ahead, a shout, a scuffle. Rex had Stanton pinned again, this time against a fallen log. The man was trying to crawl, blood pouring from a cut on his leg. Ethan ran forward, aimed his rifle. Don't move! This time, Stanton didn't resist. He just looked up, eyes burning with hate. You'll die for this, he said. Ethan stepped closer. No, he replied. I lived. Rachel dragged Stanton back to the trail. We've got enough, she said. Camp layout, faces, even GPS from their gear. But not the big fish, Ethan muttered. Rachel hesitated. Not yet. That night, back at the ranger station, Rex limped through the front door like a soldier returning from war. Everyone stood, even the rookies. No one said a word. Then someone clapped. It spread, slow at first, then rising like thunder. Ethan knelt beside Rex. You found the chief. Twice. Rex rested his head on Ethan's shoulder. No bark, just silence. Loyal. Unbreakable. And still not done. The briefing room was silent. Everyone stared at the evidence laid across the table maps, drone images, surveillance footage. And at the center of it all, a single manila folder marked Confidential. Rachel opened it slowly. "His name's Richard Kessler," she said. "Former DEA, went private 5 years ago, now runs a logistics firm out of Denver. Shell Company. He's been linked to cartel shipments along the northern corridor." Ethan leaned over the map. "That corridor cuts straight through the forest, right through where Stanton approved those fake permits." Rachel nodded. "Kessler used Stanton to move product without detection. Timber licenses, wildlife disruption forms, all forged, all signed. How many people are in on this?" someone asked. Rachel didn't look up. "Enough to make it dangerous." Rex stood at the door, tail still, ears forward, watching. Ethan pointed to a red dot on the map. "That's the last known GPS ping from the drone, right?" Rachel confirmed. "Yeah, last week. Since then, radio silence. We think Kessler knew we were closing in. He's cleaning house." Ethan stared at the dot. "Then we hit him before he's done scrubbing." That night, under cover of darkness, the Echo team rolled out. 2 snowmobiles, 4 officers. Ethan, Rachel, Deputy Luna, and Rex. The trail was narrow. Trees thick. Ice cracked under each pass. "Eyes open," Rachel called over the headset. "We don't know what we're walking into." They reached the ridge just after midnight. Below, a cabin sat tucked between 2 steep slopes. No lights, no movement, too quiet. Rachel raised her scope. "Thermal shows 4 inside." Ethan looked at Rex. "What do you think?" Rex stared straight ahead, then stepped forward, slow but certain. "He smells something," Ethan said. They moved down. Halfway through the descent, Rex stopped. Barked once. Then a second time, sharper. Rachel froze. "Trap?" A click snapped under Ethan's boot. He didn't move. "Tripwire," he whispered. Rachel dropped beside him. "Hold still. I've got it." Carefully, she disarmed the line and pulled a small claymore from beneath the snow. "Jesus," Luna muttered. "They're not messing around." They reached the cabin in silence. Rex led the way to the back wall, nose twitching. Rachel knelt. "Panel's loose." She pried it open, revealing a hidden control box. "Security grid," she said. "But not armed. Why?" "They're waiting," Ethan said. He turned to Luna. "You stay out here. Cut the power line once we're in." Luna nodded, taking position. Ethan and Rachel moved inside. The interior was rough, unfinished wood, crates stacked high, tables covered in gear, and standing behind it all, Richard Kessler. "Well," he said, calm as a lake. "Looks like someone didn't get the memo to stay out of this." Rachel raised her rifle. "Hands where I can see them." Kessler chuckled. "You think you're winning something here?" Ethan stepped forward. "You're done." Stanton rolled. Harlan cracked. "You've got no shield left." Kessler smiled. "You really don't get it, do you?" Then the floor beneath them exploded. A flashbang. Everything turned white. Ethan hit the ground hard, ears ringing. He couldn't hear Rachel, couldn't see Rex. Shots rang out from outside, screaming. Then Rex barked. Loud. Angry. Close. Ethan forced himself to move. He crawled toward the sound, toward Rex. Through the haze, he saw the dog slam into a figure one of Kessler's guards. Teeth sank into flesh. The man dropped his gun. Rachel reappeared, firing into the corner. Another man went down. "Back up!" Luna shouted through the radio. "They're retreating into the woods, 2 headed northeast." Ethan stood, vision still blurry. Kessler was gone. "No," he growled. "He's not getting away." Rex sprinted out the door. Ethan followed, heart pounding, legs burning. They cut through trees, sliding down a snowy embankment. Flashlights in the distance. Shouts. Then, up ahead, Kessler, limping, bleeding from his shoulder. Rex closed in. Ethan raised his rifle. "Don't move!" Kessler turned, slowly, grinning through blood. "You have no idea what's coming," he said. Rex stopped beside Ethan. Teeth bared. Kessler looked down at the dog. "That mutt's caused more problems than you'll ever know." "Funny," Ethan said. "I was just thinking the same about you." Rachel caught up, gun drawn. "You're under arrest," she said. "Hands on your head." Kessler didn't move. Then his smile faded, and he ran. Rachel fired once. Missed. Rex didn't. He launched, catching Kessler mid-turn. They hit the ground hard. The man screamed. By the time Ethan got there, Kessler was pinned, whimpering. Rex didn't let go until ordered. Later, back at the station, Kessler was locked in a reinforced cell. Rachel sat with Ethan on the front steps, watching dawn break. "You think that's the last of it?" she asked. Ethan shook his head. "Not a chance." They both turned to look at Rex, resting near the door. Bandaged, tired, but watching. Always watching. Rachel smiled. He knew Kessler would run. "He always knows," Ethan said. A beat. Then he added, "We're not just cleaning up a crime scene. We're dismantling a system." Rachel nodded. "And we've got the right dog for it." Rex opened one eye, thumped his tail. Just once, like he agreed. Snow hit harder that night. Thick, heavy flurries turned the forest into a blur of white and shadow. Inside the ranger station, the power flickered again. Ethan stood near the front window, watching, listening. Something was wrong. He didn't know what, not yet. But Rex did. The dog paced the hallway, muscles tense. Head low. He stopped suddenly, ears up, eyes locked on the front door. Rachel noticed it too. "He's hearing something." Ethan checked his radio. Static. Then the power cut completely. No lights. No heat. Just the wind howling outside. Ethan turned to Rachel. "Get everyone on alert, now!" She was already moving. Ethan knelt beside Rex, whispering, "Where are they?" Rex growled, then bolted toward the rear stairwell. Ethan followed without thinking. They reached the generator room. The door was open. Cold air seeped through a broken window. Snow inside. And footprints. Not theirs. He raised his sidearm. "Someone got in." Rex sniffed the ground, then the air. His head snapped toward the north hallway. He ran. Ethan chased him. At the far end of the hallway, a figure stepped into view. Black coat, mask, rifle in hand, not a burglar. A soldier. Ethan ducked behind a wall just as bullets ripped through the drywall. "Contact!" he shouted into his radio. "Armed intruders inside the building." No answer. Static. Rachel's voice broke through seconds later. "We're pinned near the armory. At least 3 tangos. Possibly more." "Copy. I've got one in the North Hall. Rex and I are moving." The intruder advanced fast. Too fast. Ethan peeked around the corner. Gone. Then a thud. Rex had leapt from the side and tackled the man straight into the wall. Rifle skidded across the floor. The man screamed. Ethan rushed forward, grabbed the weapon, and trained it on him. "On your face! Hands out! Now!" The man didn't move. Then he whispered, "Too late." Rachel's voice came back again. "Urgent. They're going for the server room. I think they want the evidence." "On my way," Ethan said, cuffing the man and leaving him on the floor. Rex didn't even stop to look back. They sprinted through the service corridor, cutting behind the mess hall. Gunfire ahead. Short bursts. Screams. When they reached the server room, the door was ajar. Smoke inside. Sparks from a fried console. Ethan burst through first. One man stood in front of the hard drives with a crowbar. He swung at Ethan. Missed. Ethan tackled him, driving his shoulder into the man's ribs. Rex was on him in seconds, teeth to arm, growl deep. The man dropped instantly, yelping. Rachel stormed in next. We stopped them just in time. One more second and everything would have been gone. They dragged the bodies to the holding cells. 3 intruders, all masked, all silent. None had eyed. Rachel slammed her palm against the desk. We still don't have the leak. How did they know to hit the server? Ethan paced. Someone told them. Who? He looked at Rex. The dog was sitting still, but not calm. He was staring at the door to the communications room. Ethan walked over and opened it slowly. Inside was Deputy Mark Teller. On the radio. Put it down, Ethan said. Mark turned slowly. It's not what it looks like. Ethan stepped inside. Then explain fast. I was trying to trace their comms. No, you weren't, Rachel said, stepping in behind Ethan. The server just got hit, and now you're on the one unsecured radio? I was helping, Mark said, too quick. Ethan looked at Rex. The dog stood, took 2 steps forward, ears pinned. Low growl. Rex never growled unless it mattered. Ethan turned back to Mark. You were the leak. I didn't know they were going to kill anyone. Don't, Rachel snapped. Don't even start. They paid me, Mark said, voice cracking. I thought it was just to delay reports. Misroute gear. I didn't know they'd hurt people. I didn't know they'd take coal. Ethan's fist clenched. You signed off on the ghost trucks, the fake wildlife damage forms. You forged my name. They had my sister's mortgage. Mark said. They had leverage. You still made a choice, Rachel said. She pulled the cuffs from her belt. Mark didn't run. He just dropped the radio. When she locked his wrists, Rex finally sat down. Back in the hallway, Ethan leaned against the wall, breathing heavy. Rachel walked over. We just arrested a friend, she said. He was never a friend, Ethan replied. A deputy appeared from the far end. Sir, you need to come outside. They stepped out onto the front porch. Headlights were approaching. Not fast, not threatening. A black SUV, state seal on the license plate. It stopped. A woman stepped out. Mid-40s, black coat, snow on her shoulders, badge clipped to her belt. Agent Harper, she said. Department of Justice. Ethan raised an eyebrow. You're late. No, she said. You were early. We've been building a case for months. Your evidence just blew it wide open. Rachel looked at Ethan. You thinking what I'm thinking? He nodded. Let's finish it. Agent Harper smiled. And bring the dog, she said. The people upstairs already know his name. Rex trotted past them all, head high, confident, ready for whatever came next. The night had never felt so long. Ethan sat quietly on the steps of the ranger station, staring into the dying fire as the embers crackled and hissed in the damp wind. Snow had turned to sleet, and sleet into rain, making the forest glisten under the floodlights. But there was no warmth in it, no comfort, not after what they'd discovered underground. Rex lay beside him, head resting on his paws, eyes open and alert despite the long day. The stitches in his side had been cleaned and dressed, but he refused to leave Ethan's side. Not even for food, not even for rest. Rachel stood inside, pacing. She held the ledger in one hand, her phone in the other. She had called the governor's office, the FBI, even a trusted journalist in Portland. Everyone wanted a piece of the story now, but no one wanted the responsibility that came with it. They're going to bury it, she muttered, coming out and lowering herself onto the step beside Ethan. They'll try, Ethan said. Rachel shook her head. They already are, Whitaker's name isn't in any system anymore. His badge number's been wiped. He's gone dark. Ethan didn't answer. He was watching the tree line. Something out there had been watching them too. He felt it. "Do you think he'll come back?" Rachel asked. Ethan didn't move. He never left. Rex raised his head suddenly. A low growl escaped his throat. Rachel followed his gaze, nothing but trees and mist. But then movement. Subtle. Calculated. Ethan stood. "Get inside. Wait. Now, Rachel." He didn't wait. He grabbed his rifle and stepped off the porch. Rex moved like a shadow beside him. Together they cut through the fog. By the time they reached the edge of the compound, the figure was gone. But he'd left a message. A single bullet casing embedded in the trunk of the tree where Ethan had once been chained. On it, scratched with a knife, 2 letters. E.S. Ethan Shaw. "He's watching," Rachel said behind him. "No," Ethan said, staring into the dark. "He's hunting." "Then what do we do?" Ethan looked down at Rex. The old shepherd was tense but steady. "We make sure the hunter becomes the hunted." The night had never felt so long. Ethan sat quietly on the steps of the ranger station, staring into the dying fire as the embers crackled and hissed in the damp wind. Snow had turned to sleet, and sleet into rain, making the forest glisten under the floodlights. But there was no warmth in it, no comfort, not after what they'd discovered underground. Rex lay beside him, head resting on his paws, eyes open and alert despite the long day. The stitches in his side had been cleaned and dressed, but he refused to leave Ethan's side. Not even for food. Not even for rest. Rachel stood inside, pacing. She held the ledger in one hand, her phone in the other. She had called the governor's office, the FBI, even a trusted journalist in Portland. Everyone wanted a piece of the story now, but no one wanted the responsibility that came with it. "They're going to bury it," she muttered, coming out and lowering herself onto the step beside Ethan. "They'll try," Ethan said. Rachel shook her head. "They already are. Whitaker's name isn't in any system anymore. His badge number's been wiped. He's gone dark." Ethan didn't answer. He was watching the tree line. Something out there had been watching them too. He felt it. "Do you think he'll come back?" Rachel asked. Ethan didn't move. "He never left." Rex raised his head suddenly. A low growl escaped his throat. Rachel followed his gaze. Nothing but trees and mist, but then movement. Subtle, calculated. Ethan stood. "Get inside. Wait. Now, Rachel." He didn't wait. He grabbed his rifle and stepped off the porch. Rex moved like a shadow beside him. Together they cut through the fog. By the time they reached the edge of the compound, the figure was gone. But he'd left a message. A single bullet casing embedded in the trunk of the tree where Ethan had once been chained. On it, scratched with a knife, 2 letters. E.S. Ethan Shaw. "He's watching," Rachel said behind him. "No," Ethan said, staring into the dark. "He's hunting." "Then what do we do?" Ethan looked down at Rex. The old shepherd was tense but steady. "We make sure the hunter becomes the hunted." The night had never felt so long. Ethan sat quietly on the steps of the ranger station, staring into the dying fire as the embers crackled and hissed in the damp wind. Snow had turned to sleet, and sleet into rain, making the forest glisten under the floodlights. But there was no warmth in it, no comfort, not after what they'd discovered underground. Rex lay beside him, head resting on his paws, eyes open and alert despite the long day. The stitches in his side had been cleaned and dressed, but he refused to leave Ethan's side. Not even for food, not even for rest. Rachel stood inside, pacing. She held the ledger in one hand, her phone in the other. She had called the governor's office, the FBI, even a trusted journalist in Portland. Everyone wanted a piece of the story now, but no one wanted the responsibility that came with it. "They're going to bury it," she muttered, coming out and lowering herself onto the step beside Ethan. "They'll try," Ethan said. Rachel shook her head. "They already are. Whitaker's name isn't in any system anymore. His badge number's been wiped. He's gone dark." Ethan didn't answer. He was watching the tree line. Something out there had been watching them, too. He felt it. "Do you think he'll come back?" Rachel asked. Ethan didn't move. He never left. Rex raised his head suddenly. A low growl escaped his throat. Rachel followed his gaze. Nothing but trees and mist. But then movement. Subtle. Calculated. Ethan stood. "Get inside. Wait. Now, Rachel." He didn't wait. He grabbed his rifle and stepped off the porch. Rex moved like a shadow beside him. Together they cut through the fog. By the time they reached the edge of the compound, the figure was gone. But he'd left a message. A single bullet casing embedded in the trunk of the tree where Ethan had once been chained. On it, scratched with a knife, 2 letters. E.S. Ethan Shaw. "He's watching," Rachel said behind him. "No," Ethan said, staring into the dark. "He's hunting." "Then what do we do?" Ethan looked down at Rex. The old shepherd was tense but steady. "We make sure the hunter becomes the hunted." The night had never felt so long. Ethan sat quietly on the steps of the ranger station, staring into the dying fire as the embers crackled and hissed in the damp wind. Snow had turned to sleet, and sleet into rain, making the forest glisten under the floodlights. But there was no warmth in it, no comfort, not after what they'd discovered underground. Rex lay beside him, head resting on his paws, eyes open and alert despite the long day. The stitches in his side had been cleaned and dressed, but he refused to leave Ethan's side. Not even for food. Not even for rest. Rachel stood inside, pacing. She held the ledgers in one hand, her phone in the other. She had called the governor's office, the FBI, even a trusted journalist in Portland. Everyone wanted a piece of the story now, but no one wanted the responsibility that came with it. "They're going to bury it," she muttered, coming out and lowering herself onto the step beside Ethan. "They'll try," Ethan said. Rachel shook her head. "They already are. Whitaker's name isn't in any system anymore. His badge number's been wiped. He's gone dark." Ethan didn't answer. He was watching the tree line. Something out there had been watching them, too. He felt it. "Do you think he'll come back?" Rachel asked. Ethan didn't move. "He never left." Rex raised his head suddenly. A low growl escaped his throat. Rachel followed his gaze. Nothing but trees and mist. But then movement. Subtle. Calculated. Ethan stood. "Get inside. Wait. Now, Rachel." He didn't wait. He grabbed his rifle and stepped off the porch. Rex moved like a shadow beside him. Together they cut through the fog. By the time they reached the edge of the compound, the figure was gone. But he'd left a message. A single bullet casing embedded in the trunk of the tree where Ethan had once been chained. On it, scratched with a knife, 2 letters. E.S. Ethan Shaw. "He's watching," Rachel said behind him. "No," Ethan said, staring into the dark. "He's hunting." "Then what do we do?" Ethan looked down at Rex. The old shepherd was tense but steady. "We make sure the hunter becomes the hunted." The night had never felt so long. Ethan sat quietly on the steps of the ranger station, staring into the dying fire as the embers crackled and hissed in the damp wind. Snow had turned to sleet, and sleet into rain, making the forest glisten under the floodlights. But there was no warmth in it, no comfort, not after what they'd discovered underground. Rex lay beside him, head resting on his paws, eyes open and alert despite the long day. The stitches in his side had been cleaned and dressed, but he refused to leave Ethan's side, not even for food, not even for rest. Rachel stood inside, pacing. She held the ledger in one hand, her phone in the other. She had called the governor's office, the FBI, even a trusted journalist in Portland. Everyone wanted a piece of the story now, but no one wanted the responsibility that came with it. "They're going to bury it," she muttered, coming out and lowering herself onto the step beside Ethan. "They'll try," Ethan said. Rachel shook her head. "They already are. Whitaker's name isn't in any system anymore. His badge number's been wiped. He's gone dark." Ethan didn't answer. He was watching the tree line. Something out there had been watching them too. He felt it. "Do you think he'll come back?" Rachel asked. Ethan didn't move. "He never left." Rex raised his head suddenly. A low growl escaped his throat. Rachel followed his gaze. Nothing but trees and mist. But then movement. Subtle. Calculated. Ethan stood. "Get inside." "Wait!" "Now, Rachel!" Ethan stood at the overlook, where the forest met the cliffs of Port Haven, wind brushing through his hair like the whispers of stories past. Below, the valley spread wide and wild, still untamed, still worth protecting. Beside him, Rex sat tall. His scarred ear twitched, nose sniffing the wind. Not as fast as before, not as reckless, but still sharp, still loyal. It had been 3 months since Whitaker vanished. No leads, no trail, just silence. But Ethan knew the forest never truly forgot. It kept secrets in its roots, and sometimes it returned them. They didn't need medals. They didn't want fame. But the truth? That mattered. Because this wasn't just about one ranger, one betrayal, one heroic dog. It was about every silent oath, every quiet act of courage no one ever sees. It was about healing, about never giving up even when chained to a tree in the middle of nowhere. And Rex? He wasn't just a dog. He was a survivor, a warrior, a brother. Some say heroes wear capes, but the real ones? They walk on 4 legs covered in mud, blood, and snow. So if this story moved you, if it reminded you of your own story with a loyal companion, a battle you thought you couldn't win, a time you stood back up, then don't just watch. Be part of it. Share this story with someone who needs hope. Drop a comment. What's the bravest thing your dog has ever done? Subscribe and join us, because in this community we protect what matters, and we never leave our own behind. From Ethan, from Rex, from all of us. Thank you for believing. The forest is watching, and so are we.